Hello, my name's Justin Urquhart Stewart, and welcome back to those of you who've been with me before, and those who haven't, you're very welcome. Well, welcome back to the exciting times. We have to try and work our way through the next stage of this rather strange jigsaw we're dealing with. It changes every single week, and I just feel very sorry for what's happening in the United States at the moment. My heart goes out to everybody having to go through the pain of that process at the moment. But anyway, let's get back to business in terms of the finance issues. You don't necessarily know this, but a lot of my background actually is in the emerging and developing markets. Not that my effort necessarily made any particular benefit to any of them. But I used to work in Uganda, and which I found a fabulous country to be in, and one with great opportunity and resources, all sorts of issues to try and manage and deal with, but some opportunities as well. But also I worked in the Far East, where actually a lot of my family had come from and actually also live. And some, I think, fascinating issues developing there. And hopefully that gives me some insight as to some of the changes, developments, and opportunities that we'll be seeing over the next few months as a result of what's happened to the global economy. So let's have a look at this and go back a few years. Some of you may remember the articles for the fashion fad, in fact, the funds that were called BRIC funds. BRIC, of course, referring to Brazil, Russia, India, and China, the four huge great nations that were going to dominate the world as they developed. And of course, as interest waned in BRIC, there had a nest to it in the form of South Africa as well. So the BRICS funds. These, of course, all had so much in common. I'm not quite sure actually what, except for the fact they were quite large. But Brazil and Russia don't have much in common, except for the fact they produce a lot of commodities. Brazil, not so much coffee, more the point of iron ore and things like that. And Russia, obviously, in terms of oil. Mr. Putin said he was actually going to expand the economy away from commodities. And after 25 years, has in fact concentrated it. And so you have that. So it was interesting to see that when you then looked at the likes of India and China, very different countries from Russia and Brazil. Why? Because they weren't commodity-based. In fact, they had very limited amounts of commodities in comparison. As for South Africa, the later add-on, well, that again was all about commodities. So first of all, let's put aside the idea of the BRIC funds. Really, don't follow that story. It's a silly story. It's a matter of trying to find things in common in countries that didn't have a great deal in common. What you can do is link together Brazil, Russia, and South Africa and say countries that are going to be suffering from commodity prices will be suffering, and they will be very definitely. Brazil got its own political issues. South Africa has got a much more dynamic political issue to try and manage with a better leadership, but some big issues to try and manage overall. And as for Russia, well, I think we all probably have our views on that. India and China are very different, though. Why? Well, because there you do have capitalism in a rather strange way. Communist capitalism in the form of China, you do what you're told, no matter how independent the company is. Remember, companies go bust in China, then the Communist Party allows them to. Whereas in India, it is a much more open capitalist nation, which has been able to adjust and change despite the difficulties and problems. Why there hasn't been more social uprising there is a source of amazement to me, although the Naxalites do control significant areas of the center of the nation. But it does mean, therefore, that you look at those nations, you can see opportunities there, the growth of the middle class, the growth of the service industry. And as I mentioned to you before, China, of course, is not a manufacturing-dominated economy. It's now a service-based economy, as, of course, is India. And with that, of course, goes consumer spending. And here is the theme that we should hang on to when we're looking at investment in the emerging and developing nations. More consumer spending is what we'll be following in terms of those businesses selling to those areas, but also those areas in those nations where actually consumers are selling and buying more. And you'll find more of that certainly occurring in the ASEAN nations. So don't give up on the emerging nations and developments, but separate them up. Don't believe in the hyperbole of one big area of developing and emerging. They're all very separate indeed, with some great opportunities. Good luck, and look forward to speaking to you again. Goodbye, and keep safe.